Thank you for joining us on the program, everyone. We turn our attention today to Nigeria's ambitious target of growing its gross domestic product to $1 trillion by 2030. For the Director General of the Bureau of Public Enterprises, hitting that milestone will require nothing short of a massive acceleration of economic growth, and that will be powered by innovation, private sector participation and job creation. I mean, the kind that can truly lift families out of poverty. But beyond the numbers and projections lies a deeper question of whether or not Nigeria can become a truly productive nation. Because at the heart of growth is productivity, the ability to get more done with less waste, to deliver public services efficiently, and to turn government from a bottleneck into an enabler. And that's where governance innovation comes in, our ability to rethink how our ministries, departments, and agencies serve citizens, how collaboration with the private sector can indeed drive efficiency, and how leadership, strategy, and education can all align toward the purpose of national transformation. My guest tonight is someone who believes Nigeria can infinitely be more productive than it is today. And he has seen it firsthand, working across the public and private sectors for more than 2 decades. He's a renowned productivity consultant, member of the National Council on Privatization, and managing consultant and CEO at Nakachi Consulting, where he's led major reform and capacity building initiatives for government institutions and corporate organizations alike. Dr. Sam Okoko joins me tonight as we go beyond the headlines to unpack really how innovation and productivity in governance can turn Nigeria's trillion-dollar dream into reality. Welcome to the show, Dr. Okoko.
Thank you very much, Nifemi. It's my pleasure to be on your program.
Glad to have you here as well. Nigeria's $1 trillion economy by 2030 is just 5 years away. From your experience, what must we do differently, both in government and governance, to make that goal a reality?
Well, thank you. The first thing I think is not economic or technological, it's psychological. If we want to hit 1 trillion, we should be targeting for much more than that. Though momentum is invisible, it's one of the most powerful forces on the planet. And you and I know that once we set the targets really high, it changes the way we think, because the true product of any person, team, or country is the quality of its thinking. So we don't want to hit 1 trillion. We should target for much more than that, and 1 trillion will become much more achievable for us.
Absolutely. I think after rebasing the GDP, we hit about 37282 trillion. That's about $244 billion actually, approximately 30% upward revision from earlier figures last year. But you often say Nigeria is far less productive than it can be. In simple terms, where are we losing the most time, the most talent and energy, and how do you think we can really fix that?
Well, one of the first things we have to understand is that government itself, it's the single largest employer, single largest investor into the economy. It's the same government that crafts policy and enforces policy. So if we had just 10% more innovation in government processes, I think it would lift the entire economy out of the doldrums and push us far ahead. Concerning the private sector, all of our growth, market penetration, regional growth is tied, locked into the SMEs. So if we can provide the funding they need, like we had NEFUND, National Economic Reconstruction Fund, this is the kind of time to let them have access to large amounts of capital, low interest, long-term development financing that will help them grow both organically and inorganically, so they can consolidate and be able to penetrate the market. So that's there. All of this is totally different from the fact that each of us, government or public sector, should be incredibly more productive by having clear-cut visions, making sure that our plans are dovetailing together so that there's cumulative impact, and that everyone is staying accountable to what needs to get done.
You know, when people hear innovation, they think of startups and tech. But how can government itself become innovative in delivering permits, justice, healthcare, or even education?
Well, with government, they have to come through to what I call the citizen touch points. Government must really identify every single point where it touches the citizens' lives and begin to innovate around those touch points. It's not enough to just say innovation. So whether it's in the delivery of services, the offering of licenses and permits, public procurement, we must find out where government interfaces with the citizens and innovate around those specific touch points.
You recently questioned whether Servicom has truly delivered on its promise 21 years after launch. What would you change to make public service in Nigeria actually serve the public?
Well, there's the popular saying about be the change you want to see. And when you look at the people we have in Servicom, they are just ordinary citizens like us. They cannot give more than they get. Services are poor all across the country. So what I say to them is don't see it as a job, see it as a crusade. Maybe you are the one we've been waiting for. If we can go beyond just saying, look, I'm doing my job and offer what I'll call positively outrageous service, I think that's infectious because nothing succeeds like success. And if we can improve the service culture in Nigeria, we can touch everything else.
But what do you think is the missing link between leadership and productivity, especially in the public sector? How do we build that culture that you're talking about, where civil servants take ownership and pride in the work they do?
Well, it boils down to execution. As you well know, we have good policies and programs, long-term, short-term, medium-term programs, but execution is always lacking. And when you talk to the civil service, for example, you find there's a big disconnect between those at the lower cadres and those at the top. If you ask them, what's the vision? They don't know. The vision should be the driving force. Everyone should know exactly what the vision is and what the milestones, the timelines, and the deliverables should be. This should be clear. People should have job descriptions that tell them exactly what roles they play in making that happen. And most of all, there must be adequate performance management systems in place, because nothing motivates people more than seeing that their job is recognized and their job is relevant and it's pushing the country forward.
We have had instances in this country where union leaders have challenged minister about the time of arrival. More recently, there was a protest by certain public servants where the minister was saying, well, my role is policy direction. If you need welfare, talk to the permanent secretary. How do we, how does it trickle down in such a way that leadership is also able to connect with the people, because that sector for many years has its own culture and its own idea of how work is done?
Well, that was a very unfortunate statement made by the minister. But the truth is, we have to be particular about the people we choose for leadership. I've always said it shouldn't be for political exigencies. It should be based on their abilities to perform. And leaders must know that they are the embodiment of what they want the people to achieve. I like what Warren Buffett said. He says that the first job of a leader is to define reality. The last job of a leader is to say thank you, and in between, the leader is a servant. And we don't have that attitude yet. Our leaders think that they are a cut above the rest, and until they begin to see themselves as enablers of service delivery and embodiments of the culture of their organizations, there will continue to be a gap.
I hear it, and I understand the idea that everything rises and falls on leadership. But, there's also this strong disconnect between the people being led and those leading them. And give it to a few leaders who have made attempts in that regard. They even, they are faced with some form of opposition because there's a way it's done, especially in the public service. If you don't play ball, you become number one, you become enemy number one.
It's true, but you know, the truth is we're at a position now in our history where we must be able to make that change happen. Listen, no matter how bad things are, it's benefiting someone. Keeping things the way they are benefiting certain people. But if we agree as Nigerians that it's time for change, positive change, then we must all be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable in the now to make the future better for ourselves, our children, and the next generation.
Is this the same thing we're hearing from government, that these are just pangs of birth? The policy of government, removal of full subsidy, unification of the exchange rate, and what have you. Is it the same energy that you think Nigerians need to react? Is it the same thing we're talking about?
Yes, well, Nigerians, we all know we've had unmerited standards of living for a long time. We know that the change must come. There must be a point in time when everybody says, okay, look, it's time for a new thing. It's time for a growth phase. It's time to think about the country and put the country first. You know, but even so, government has to do it with a bit of compassion. You don't throw it at people. You make people come, sit down and discuss, understand what's going to happen, give them a time frame, even if it's an estimation, and show them the roles that they have to play and lead by example. You know, the people just need to see that leadership has a human face, and we are ready. Nigerians are ready to go the whole 9 yards to make sure that we have the greatest country on earth.
Well, back after this break, Dr. Ikoku will explore the role the private sector also has to play. Stay with us, everyone. Don't go away. Thanks for staying with us, everyone. Dr. Ikoku, thank you for staying the course on the show as well. You know, many have argued that government itself should be run more like a business, with targets, with timelines and consequences. It's perhaps why we've had to privatize many of our industries to see some level of functionality and effectiveness. But from your consulting experience, what stops MDAs, for instance, from operating with that same efficiency mindset?
Well, the first one I would say after so many years is there are no consequences for poor performance. There are no consequences for good performance. And as long as you don't have that, people would default to what's convenient for them. When you look at the public sector in some other countries, you see they're just as efficient as the private sector. And that means we can do the same here. But people go to government with a different mindset. It's a time to get out of the, sharing the national cake, get job security, get as much pay as you can with doing very little work. But as we move forward, as the systems begin to get a bit more tightened, as performance begins to get better measured, as results have consequences for success or failure, you will begin to see a tightening of the bolt in the public service. And once that begins to happen, it's going to be an accelerated kind of growth, and I'm looking forward to that.
You've said productivity dies where accountability ends. Break it down for us. What practical systems can keep people and the agencies of government accountable for performance?
Well, if you look at the new performance management system that's in place, it's in place really, in theory, it's not yet been practicalized because they're working on it. But it starts with a very different premise, which is what should have been in the first place. Number one, it says, what's the minister's compact with the executive council? What's the permanent secretary's compact with the ministers? What are the deliverables? And then it begins to look at all the staff and gives them job descriptions, which have been lacking in the public service. If you get a level 12 officer and say, what exactly do you have to do, or what are your key result areas, they can generally tell, but it's not codified. So once we have these job descriptions and key result areas, and then we have performance metrics measurements and key performance indicators, and we implement them, the culture will resist for a little while, but after some time, like I said, nothing succeeds like success. So it's about bringing accountability in, making people see what impact their roles have to play on the general economy. And I think people will feel better when they can see that their performance is acknowledged.
You think that you think that is implementable in our political climate, the way and manner these appointments are made, the groups and interest that they represent? How do you sustain this culture, vis-a-vis being not necessarily politically naive?
Well, this is a question that's above my pay grade, but I'll tell you this. Until we put the political systems in place where we know that the people we elected, the people we voted for, the people who are elected, when people are coming to the table with programs and can be held accountable, rather than playing the political chessboard where you deliver your local government, you deliver your state, I promise you some sort of title or some sort of office. When we begin to get to that point, we will find out that there will be really no difference, because politics will be aiding the economy will aid politics. But for now, they're running at parallel lines. Actually, not even parallel, they're moving away from each other. And we're getting people in office who shouldn't be in office. And hopefully, this particular administration, I hope, will begin the process of fine-tuning and putting round pegs in round holes.
There's also the issue of branding and perception of the nation itself. The other day, I was speaking with the DG of NOA to help understand whether or not the agency's understanding of when Nigeria happens to you is the same thing as what it means on the street. We talk about young people as the future, but how can they actually be part of fixing today's governance? Or what's the role of technology, civic participation, and patriotism play in building a more productive generation? Do you see a bridge in between what young people feel about Nigeria and the actual productivity taking place, both at the private and public space?
Again, that's a very wide question, but the truth is the average 17, 20-year-old Nigerian today does not know the Nigeria we started with. They've not been properly led, they've not been properly schooled in terms of what is acceptable behavior. If you go on social media today, you'll hear people lambasting their country, saying so many things about this country. And if you can be that mean about your country, why do you expect anyone else to take you seriously? Now, yes, they have a point. They can point to poor leadership, disappointments in the past. But why? The question is, why do they see it as if it's somebody else's concern? Why can't all of us see that Nigeria is our business and come to the table with something positive for a change? The National Orientation Agency should be far more visible and far more insidious in the way that it reaches out to people. Propaganda, for example, is required, especially in the age of social media. But it has to be positive propaganda that makes Nigerians proud about who they are, makes them stand strong, stand tall, and see that we are a team in the world community. And our team must win. Once we have that attitude in place, once the flag begins to make your heart flutter, once the national anthem begins to bring tears to your eyes, once the pledge touches your soul, we will have a country. And until then, it's a little bit difficult.
Propaganda is great, narratives are great, but there's also the reality of lived experiences, because it matters what the average Nigerian experiences, and there is no amount of propaganda that can change that reality. But you are big on flawless execution, and I want to take you back there quickly. What does that look like today in government terms, and how can we ensure great policies, as we've seen in our dear country, Nigeria, don't die at the implementation stage?
Yeah. Well, there's a big thing about culture that's holding it back. But what I've done, and I think people like me, and I'm inviting everyone, consultants and patriots alike, to step forward and do what we can. In my organization, what we do is we have a corporate social responsibility called flawless execution. and we go to agencies, ministries, and departments that would have us, and we have a 3 to 4 hour high-level executive training on what flawless execution really is. And I can tell you, every time we have sessions with one of these people, they change. They come back to me and say, you know, that was amazing because that's what I've always felt. If we can have the right atmosphere. And that's why I insist that leaders should be part of the program. Because once you get leaders to understand that we have to close the gap between expectation and actual performance and bring that gap together, and our execution is flawless in terms of pursuing our vision and our mission objectives, then you'll be surprised the amount of energy, creativity, and innovation that's already sitting down in the staff you have right there, whether it's the public or private sector. So it's about letting people hear a different narrative of what's possible, and they will really get it. I've seen things happen, if I may. People just step up and say, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And when the more of that we need, that's all it'll take. Listen, Nigeria is like anywhere else. We don't need everybody to change Nigeria. Just a few good people. And I'm calling those few good people through your program to come and step up, and let's take Nigeria where it needs to go.
In your last engagement with the BP, you cited countries like Singapore, Rwanda, and Ghana as examples of efficient service delivery. What's one lesson you think we need to learn from those countries that can be realistically applied here?
Well, take Singapore, for example. The people they take into government, not just anybody. They take people who have shown progress, advancement, leadership in their fields. Because I've always said that once the operators are smarter than the regulators, the economy will tank. So it's still the same question of getting the right people to lead. Once you get technocrats in government, and that's what Nigeria needs now, technocrats in government. We saw it in the Obasanjo administration. We saw how much progress was made. We don't need to look at Singapore or South Korea or Rwanda. We have it in our history. If we could just look at that again and say, how do we get the right people to lead? Then everything will change.
Do we have the right people leading us right now?
I think you are one of them.
How am I leading as a journalist right now from this studio? What a way to answer that question, though, Dr. Ekoko. I'm talking about governance.
Because it's everybody. It's everybody, because you see, the people in government did not come from another country. They are us in office. So when you turn up on time, when you come to a program like this and you're well prepared, when your tech background, you know, in terms of all the studio stuff is in place, everything is working smoothly, it's your little 4 acres, little piece of real estate. But if you handle it right and the next guy does the same thing and the next guy does the same thing, we're going to have a great country. If we focus on our circle of influence, whether it's your office, your family, your team, or your company, or your sector, and we make it the best that it can be, everything else will fall into place.
We have to go now. If you had 60 seconds with the president, what one bold, actionable step would you recommend to boost productivity and innovation in governance? And you actually have 60 seconds.
All right, look, keep Nigerian assets in Nigeria's hands. Give the SMEs, the capital they need to bring out the innovation and creativity that they have. Make sure that the performance management system in the public service is implemented yesterday, and then be on the lookout to put the right people in the right place. Then you can sit back, Mr. President, and enjoy what you have done.
Productivity consultant, member, National Council on Privatization, managing consultant, and CEO, Nakachi Consulting. Dr. Sam Ekoko, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you very much for having me on your program.
And that's our show today, everyone. Remember, you can watch it again at midnight and 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Do have a lovely weekend.